Welcome back, everyone, to Weird Wolf Unchained. I'm Bran.
I'm Robert. Sarah.
And this is Movies with My Monsters. And today we watched, what did we watch today?
Invisible Man.
Which one?
The black and white one.
From 1933. So we're going to do something a little bit different this time. I'm going to read the synopsis like we do for the movies versus books. While researching a new drug, Dr. Jack Griffin stumbles on a potion that can make him invisible. When he reveals his new ability to his old mentor and his fiancée, it's clear that a side effect of the potion is insanity. Jack goes on a violent rampage, and the police struggle to hunt him down, unable to see their target, while his mentor and his former partner desperately try to devise a plan to capture him. So, what do you guys think of this movie overall?
It was good. It didn't really scare me, but it was good. It had lots of funny moments. I really, really liked it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why?
'Cause I don't know what's gonna happen, and I don't know where he is.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right. So, what do you think about the plot of the story?
I think it's a good setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think it was an interesting plot?
Yes. Yes.
I do. I'd especially like to see this version of the Invisible Man done in a modern way, because I think it could be really scary. Because you got to remember, this is a movie that's 87 years old, and things that were scary to them now aren't very scary to us. Or things that were scary to them aren't as scary to us now. So, like, one example is, like, I mentioned when we were watching it, I missed the part where Griffin goes through the gate near the end before he goes to get Kemp. I missed that, and it was included to set up that people are supposed to be scared. But I think the way stories are told now, that it makes it more scary, not knowing that he's traveling around or whatever, or what he might be doing. Because when he shows up later, it's like, oh, it's more of a shock kind of scare. And then your brain can imagine all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
What do you think the story was executed very well?
Yes. Yeah.
Did it get a point? The ideas that it went into?
Yes. Yeah.
I think so. After another watch and after talking about it a little bit more with Mommy last week for that episode, I think that some of the ideas, it might have actually introduced some different ideas, like similar to Jurassic Park. One of the themes and ideas is science for the sake of science without
thinking
of the consequences, which, I mean, he kind of does think of the consequences, but he's driven more by wanting to get money and power, and being invisible kind of pushes that a little bit more for him. Also, I mentioned in that episode that's going to come out well after this, that they don't really touch on the ideas from the book as well, but I think they do a little bit, just not as strongly as they could have, or as strongly as would be effective for today's audiences. Maybe it was back then, not knowing if he's in the room or not knowing where he could be.
They will point out that he could be anywhere listening to them at that moment.
Yes. And in the book, it's presented a little bit stronger that, he could slip a note under your door and you not know when it's going to happen, if he's there, whatnot. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was when... I don't really have a favorite part or thing.
No? Not about the way it was shot, or...
I just like the whole entire movie.
You like the whole movie?
Yeah.
Well, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but was there anything more specific about it that you liked?
Well, I don't know.
Like, for me, I like the special effects in this, because even though this movie was made in 1933, I think these effects hold up pretty well for the most part. I did notice a little bit more this time. I won't get too deep into that because I don't want to ruin it for myself. But the way they shot it, and because it's in black and white, it it does hold up very well.
I agree.
Because what they did then, instead of having a green screen or a blue screen like we use now, they had him wearing black velvet and standing in front of a black velvet screen. I listened to Chelsea and James talk about it on Dead Meat, but I forget what they called it. But then they'd be able to take the actor portraying the Invisible Man, they'd be able to take him and impose him on the footage of the room or wherever he's at. So like some of that stuff is him actually moving things around. Like when he smokes the cigarette, that's him moving around. And obviously when he's in clothing where they need it filled out, that's him. Some of the other stuff is, wires, like the log or whatnot is wires, and it's supposed to give the impression that a person is moving it around. I also figured out how they did the feet prints.
How?
They had carved blocks of wood that were in the shape of a shoe because it's a lot easier to do. And they had somebody up above just dropping them down below.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
How come we can't see the wood then?
Well, they probably stop it, so kind of like stop motion animation, and drop it, and then film, and then stop, drop it, film, stop, drop it, film. So that way you get the footprint appearing. So that way they could have the feet appear without having another person walking along making them.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So, Sarah, what is your favorite part?
I don't really have a favorite part because I don't enjoy the older horror movies because they don't scare me as much.
That doesn't mean that you can't find something enjoyable about it.
I did find lots of funny moments.
Like what?
When the cop was going in and he was just saying, "Oh."
The cop was pretty funny. And another thing that Dead Meat was talking about was Monty Python and their constable character. And it's very likely that they took influence from stuff like this because they would have grown up on it. Right, Mommy?
Right.
Haha, gotcha.
And another thing about the cop thing, so the people tell him where the Invisible Man is, and then he's like, okay, and then the person who owns the farm
In.
Oh, I thought you were talking about when they burned the farm.
No, he's talking about in the beginning.
Oh. She tells the cop where the Invisible Man is, and he's like, oh.
Well, that's not too out of the ordinary. I know it seems ridiculous to us, especially the way it's presented, but oftentimes a cop will ask people a question to see if information lines up. And so like a bunch of people in hysterics running out of a building freaking out, it's easy to question them. Plus, even though everybody's screaming, and I forget her name, Miss Hall would not necessarily know that he's already been told, so it would still make sense that she would tell him.
Yeah.
So just something to think about. And mind you, it was done very comically, so it kind of makes it seem ridiculous, but there's good reason for it too.
Agreed.
Who's your favorite character?
I'm not sure because the only character that's really set throughout the whole entire movie is the Invisible Man.
But nobody else stood out to you?
No.
No? That's fair, I suppose. But we can go with that. Do you like anything about Griffin?
No, I don't usually fall for the bad guys.
No? What about you, Robbie?
I like the Invisible Man.
Yeah, why?
'Cause he to me he's a character that's mostly funny to me.
Yeah, he does do a lot of ridiculous stuff, doesn't he? But again, for that time period, that's how crazy people kind of acted, or how they thought crazy people acted. Because they didn't know as much about insanity and the things that people dealt with. So like if you just sat there singing a song for no reason, they thought that was odd. But then particularly he pushes it and sings it in a very ridiculous, over-the-top way. What was your least favorite part?
I don't know. Like I said, this was a pretty good movie.
It doesn't mean that there aren't things that you didn't appreciate or didn't like. I'm not saying you should try to find things all the time, but... So, like, for me, the hysterics of people in the beginning is just a little bit over the top, and it might have been done on purpose for comedic effect. Maybe it was just not understanding how to direct, because at this time period, too, they were still trying to figure out how making a movie, especially with sound, worked. Because for the first movies, they didn't have people talking. Maybe we could watch one of those next time, like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
I wanted to get back on Paranormal Activity.
We will. I'm not saying we're going to watch it next. We'll watch one of those one of these days. So, like, as you're watching it, you can see, you might be able to tell that it's filmed like they're filming a play. The way people are staged and set up, so that way you're always seeing them. And how they do close-ups for reactions instead of just letting people react. So, I mean, there's an explanation for it. It's just where we are in cinema now and the way I'm conditioned to it, that stuff really stands out to me and is jarring and kind of doesn't ruin the experience, but upsets it a little bit.
I don't have to have a least favorite part this time. I had one the last 2 times.
That's fine. What about you, Robbie? Is there anything?
My least favorite part is when the Invisible Man is sleeping in the hay.
Yeah? Why?
'Cause when he's sleeping in the hay, I think he's out of the hay when the farmer comes in, but he's not, and also that the barn was probably locked, because in the beginning everybody was locking their doors once they found out. Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, they didn't really have padlocks and stuff readily available like we do, and doorknobs and stuff. I mean, they did, kind of, but they were a lot more expensive to produce, so you only put them on really important things.
I didn't like the fake snoring.
See, there's always something that you don't like.
Why did they have to do the fake snoring?
To let you know that he's there.
But we could already see him moving.
And to let the farmer know. So you gotta remember, people in movies don't see the things that we see sometimes. So like, we saw him go into the farm, or into the barn, but the farmer didn't. And they needed something for the farmer to be clued in that he was there. And that's why.
Why did it have to be fake, though?
Because he wasn't actually snoring.
But why couldn't you just find a recording of someone snoring?
That might have been a lot of extra work.
Maybe they didn't have that ability.
Maybe. And, we didn't have as much stock footage then as we do now, because there's a lot of sounds and film roll, B-roll, that we have available to us now that people are able to use. So that way they can, especially in like the 60s and 70s, that's something that they used a lot to help save production costs, is they'd have this generic footage that everybody had access to that they could all use of like a plane taking off, and they would use that and then do whatever else they needed to do. So like a video I was watching about a movie called Soul Survivor does that. They use that footage of the plane taking off, and then they use a screen to imply that the plane crashes, and then they show you the wreckage of the plane. But because they didn't have to go get permission and set up all this stuff to get film of a plane taking off, they already had access to it. It saved them a lot of time, and it saved them a lot of money. And they could put that money towards more important things like the gore of the crash.
That makes sense.
So part of it is just things not being available. Sound was a very new thing to film when this was made. Because it's 1933, I don't remember when the transition happened, but it was around, say, 1928 to 1930. So you're only talking a few years there. I mean, people still do fake snoring now. Sometimes it's just easier to do that in the moment than do a whole bunch of extra work. And, it's a little bit comical. Fake snoring was a big thing then.
Really?
Kind of. Especially in like the cartoons and comedies. So it was the least favorite thing. Did we talk about least favorite character?
No. You.
All right.
Again, like I said, not all of the characters were throughout the whole movie. There was really only one that was through the whole movie.
Doesn't mean that you can't like or not like something. People still make impressions on you.
So it's kind of hard to get the personalities and whatnot.
It can be a little bit more difficult. And I don't really like Kemp in this because he's just a big coward and he's just there to serve the purpose of giving another person on screen for Griffin to kill. So he doesn't have much personality. He's not given a lot to do, where he could actually be a very important part of the story.
And he kind of is, because he tells the cops about Griffin.
Yeah.
And that's how they catch him.
Kinda. It leads to it. What about you?
My least favorite character is, I don't remember his name, but he's the guy who works for, the Invisible Man for a little bit.
Kemp?
Yeah.
Why don't you like him?
'Cause he's really annoying and also a boring character to me.
Yep. I need to go back on least favorite part because I think there is a missed opportunity with Kemp, and I remember this talking about him, that it doesn't make sense in this movie for him to not kill him on the spot. He should have throttled him and thrown him out the window right in front of the cops. It would have been a little bit better, and then he could have focused on him terrorizing people a little bit more.
Maybe that was just to scare Kemp.
It was, and it's to kind of follow the book, because that's how it happens in the book, but it's set up better in the book, isn't it?
What?
The threat on Kemp's life? Because isn't he more concerned about getting away in the moment? Isn't there more of a direct threat, or...
He's already gotten away when he threatens Kemp. Kemp is threatened with a letter under the
That's
door.
right. So it's set up a lot better in the book for him to have to come back. Whereas this one, he's right there. It feels like they just did it because that's how it happens in the book, and nobody came up with anything different. Whereas, especially if I were remaking this now, and that scene played out the same, I would have him throttle Kemp, choke him, and then throw him out the window in front of the cops, because it's going to distract the cops and make it easier for him to get away, and they're going to be afraid and distraught. And then we can focus on other things of him. Maybe he goes after Flora's dad, too, because he feels betrayed by him. Maybe he goes after Flora because he feels betrayed by her. It sets up something more intense later on.
And it makes the movie longer.
It doesn't necessarily have to be longer.
I know, it just felt like that one was kind of quick.
It was only a little over an hour. Mommy disagrees, but whatever. But yeah, that one was only 71 minutes. So it was like an hour and 10, 11 minutes.
The end was, seemed like, oh my gosh, already? I just barely got started.
The end does come on rather quickly, yes. Because the first couple acts is a lot more of just setting everything up. Would you watch this again?
Yes, maybe.
You want to elaborate?
Like I said the more modern and horror movies I prefer them. I prefer the more modern horror movies.
Because they're actually scary?
Yeah.
And that's like, if I was more interested in this, I would have watched this last year, kind of, when I really actually started introducing you guys to scary movies, because this is the kind of stuff we were watching, right? Because I didn't want to go too far overboard. Gotta see where everybody's levels are at. Can't just jump right into Evil Dead, which is going to be a while before you guys get to watch that. If it's something that bothers Daddy, you guys aren't ready for it. But I mean, that doesn't mean that you can't watch it again still. Like, it's not in context of everything else. Like, just this movie. Would you watch this movie again? Because it doesn't have to scare you for you to enjoy it.
I'm not sure.
Because I'm okay with this. I would watch this again. I've got the 30 disc collection on my Amazon to procure sometime in the future, hopefully. But I mean, you did say you liked it, right? You thought it was a good movie, but not good enough to watch again?
Yeah.
Okay. But this guy would?
Yeah.
All right. I kind of talked about some of my fixes. Is there anything you would fix about it?
I would try to make some things more sudden, like you don't know it's coming.
So a little bit more jump scary?
Yes. And a little longer.
A little bit longer. I would definitely play with the psychological terror of it a lot more and have him terrorize Kemp a little bit. Like, I don't know. I would definitely have to change the story quite a bit from the book too. But I would definitely press more on the idea of he could be anywhere and he is willing to do whatever to anybody, and play with the idea of sliding notes under people's doors. Like, not even necessarily people that have betrayed him or anything like that, just to scare people, you know, to give the town this sense of dread, so that way we can feel that sense of dread. And like, I haven't really thought too deep into it, so I don't know. I said some of my fixes play more directly to what we just watched than redoing it for a more modern audience to play on the things that would terrify us more. What about you, Guy?
No.
No? Nothing at all?
Nope.
All right. Is there anything that you thought was scary at all?
No. I thought that when he was shot, it was scary because I thought maybe he would be immune to bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was standing there for a little bit.
Before he fell over?
Yeah. I thought maybe he would just make a mark in the sand and try and get it away, like through his footprints or something, try and get away without them noticing, so they thought he would be dead. But that's just something I expected. It didn't scare me a whole bunch.
Yeah. I don't know. My first couple times watching this, the effects of him being invisible were kind of unsettling, just because of how good they are, but also at the same time how unnatural it looks in that environment. So it wasn't necessarily scary, it just was a little bit disturbing. Some things that could be scary, I like how a lot of times his face wraps, especially the first one, it looks kind of like a skull. Did you see that? It's got the triangle here and the eye sockets. It was very haphazardly done.
Yeah. And I also noticed that when he died and his form was coming back, that I think that maybe the skeleton appeared first.
It did. That's another one of those effects that was really good for the time. I'd like to know how they did that one. But that's another thing that, especially for that time, people weren't accustomed to seeing that kind of stuff on screen. So it was probably really scary for them.
But it was hard to tell if it was a skull or not because it was so faint, because it was just starting up.
Yeah. Well, it lingered for a moment. Do you guys have anything else that you want to say?
No.
No?
No.
Sarah?
No.
No? I don't really have anything. I've talked about this at pretty good lengths already. Yeah. So that was Movies with My Monsters, The Invisible Man. Thanks for listening. I keep forgetting to do all this stuff. These are up on YouTube if you're picking it up here. There's not video form for it. It's just audio with a picture. And podcast should be on some of the major podcasters. I know it goes on Apple and Spotify and whatever the other big one is. Anyways, again, thanks for listening. All right, bye.